Alrighty then, it's time for a Dr. Mundo game. Let's get this show on the road. I'm quite pleased that people are enjoying me busting out Dr. Mundo again. That makes me quite happy. By the way, you can thank the Club Gigi challenges for pushing me to revive an old classic like Dr. Mundo. Club Gigi, formerly Quarterback Gigi, is a free app that puts you into a competition against 7 other goons from other clubs in a set of challenges like highest CS, most kills, or best KDA spread, with the winner receiving app currency that they can use to exchange for league champion skins. However, if you're like me, you tend to take any challenge seriously, so even if you have no interest in skins, you might use the app to push you into playing out of your comfort zone in an attempt to snatch first place. I know I've been busting out Shyvana and Dr. Mundo to win the CS challenge. Just download the app, join my club, and you can start taking challenges before the game starts. You'll be placed into a group to compete with and hopefully demolish all of them. Just follow the link in the description below and become part of my wall. Anyways, let's get the show started. So, right off the bat, my top laners, and, the mid laner, harass Teemo and bring him down. They also ward the enemy red buff, which the Xin Zhao decides to start in his red buff anyways, even though he probably shouldn't have done that. They go in there, harass him, which allows me to go take his blue buff, and they end up taking him down. Hilariously, too, the enemy Teemo dies again. I then go to gank bottom lane, which I normally wouldn't do so quickly as Dr. Mundo, but given the situation, I just go in there, not really expecting a kill, just sort of forcing them to, back off, giving my bottom lane a lot of breathing room, enough for them to actually kill the Lux. Go to gank mid, force the flash off the Xerath, so I gotta say, my early game is off to an amazing start, and I'm not really killing people yet. Then, the Xin Zhao gets dropped too. So in this game, I took Club GG's Max CS challenge. So I picked Dr. Mundo with that intention. Just, farm up a storm, get as much CS as possible, harass the enemy team, and probably not really win by kills. If anything, by sieging and, attrition. Just sort of bog the enemy team down with a ton of stress. At least that's the idea. Team comp wise, both teams are kind of, weird. And they're not to say that they're, extremely bad per se, but there's really no focus in the comps that both of us have. The enemy team has some poking power with several champions there, Caitlyn, Lux, and Xerath, but then they have this weird siege with Teemo and all in engaged with Xin Zhao. So there's a little bit of it right there. Their mid game is very wonky. My team suffers from just kind of having champions that fight battles in very different ways. So, our team fight is going to be our team fight isn't particularly bad. It's just going to be very odd, per se. We can pull it off, but it's going to be kind of strange. But thankfully, Dr. Mundo in front of someone like Ezreal is pretty good. Anyways, the enemy Xin Zhao gets himself a kill in exchange for sacrificing his Xerath, and then he decides to pick a fight with me for whatever reason. But I have Red Smite and Exhaust, and I have my ultimate. I'm just Dr. Mundo. Don't duel Dr. Mundo in a straight fight unless you have an overwhelming advantage. It's not gonna work out for you. So yeah. Anyways, like I said, right now my CS is actually ridiculously high. Look at how it is compared to everybody else. I know this is still in a division where the CSing isn't godlike, but still, it's something nice to say. And I know it's not all jungle CS so far, but still, the control is there. I just happen to be at a very, opportune times. But by the way, I love this scene. Teemo was like, I'm going to harass you, Mundo, and then just gets cleaved in the face. I love that. And then this Xin Zhao's like just trying to avoid my cleavers, but the more time he spends trying to avoid my cleavers, the more time he spends in I was going to say fire, but my little ice spheres and getting whacked in the face with my icicle. So, that was not that good. So take those lane CS, deal some crit damage to the tower, go home, and then just, I want to get myself as tanky as possible. Fun fact, one of the things with Dr. Mundo that's kind of hilarious is where you farm up so much and you're so strong without items in the early game. Later on, you do desperately need items. Where you just kind of spend a lot of time with a bunch of money in your pocket. Anyways, farming up still, just harassing whatever lane I get close to. I love this little scene because, how push the minions to the tower, and I have my ultimate and an exhaust, and I will have my smite soon, and the Caitlyn just sticks around. I'm like, I can literally tank this tower and play badly, miss my Qs, and just, do whatever, but the tower won't do enough damage to bring me down. It's probably one of the most fun, most troll things of Dr. Mundo, in which if your opponent, well, your opponent will often underestimate the fact that you can absolutely just tank these towers and shrug them off. It's hilarious. Especially later on in the game where you had way more health items and you basically make the tower non-existent as your team kills the enemy team under their tower, their supposed safety net. Anyways, 22 to 11. Again, going around taking as much CS as I can from the enemy jungle, trying to control, whatever buffs. I get the Herald, although the Aurelia wants to take it for herself, and yeah, just continued farming non-stop. I think at this point you can tell that the enemy team kind of got crushed by their lanes, and it mostly had to do with something the enemy team failed to do before the game even started. Now, I've made a huge point about this in a lot of videos and a lot of games where it's very frustrating when teammates do not help you secure the early game, so they sort of let you die or get invaded. In that case, the Teemo tried, I guess, to keep surveillance for the Xin Zhao, but he died, and the Xin Zhao didn't give a crap about the surveillance he gave him, and then he died, and the Teemo trying to help his Xin Zhao even further died again. And that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game, and it's very unfortunate that the Teemo sort of got punished for, well, all of that. Anyways, as you can see, the enemy team's team fighting is extremely clunky, way more clunky than ours, so they can't really pick off my teammates regardless of how big or whatever we were. They can do quite a bit of damage because, they do have damaging champions, but it seems like, their lack of, I guess, team cohesion in terms of champions they made means they can't really go 100% on things. Again, I know there's been comments in some of my videos where I need to specify more about these things. So, look at it. The range difference between a lot of their champions and the way they want to fight is considerably different. Xerath is, a mage sniper of sorts. But Xin Zhao's their only frontliner, and he's gonna frontliner and only kind of initiation, so they sort of have to get themselves close because his engage isn't all that great. So it kind of negates the whole range ability or a range snipingness of Xerath. Teemo is very short range too, so that kind of gives you. Punishes the enemy team more in that aspect. And Lux is sort of mid-range. So they've got all these sort of ranges, and their best champions need to be, their best champions won't be super protected with they're forced to fight so close up to follow in their Xin Zhao. But yeah, you saw us right there sort of get punished and killed for, I guess, our arrogance. And luckily for us, they waste a lot of time chasing out the Aurelia instead of taking more objectives or controlling the map. They're trying really hard to kill her, and they eventually do bring her down, but slow process. I go back to just farming. I got Warmog's armor now. And if you're able to get Warmog's armor super early in the game, it is the most trolly, most amazing item you could ever have. Again, I could basically engage like an idiot now. And if they can't kill me, I'm just going to sit back, take a breather, and then just come back and just wear them down. Here, like I said, I could just basically brute force my way through the enemy team. They were forced to burn a lot just to get away from me, and they basically didn't even do anything to me. Again, the best thing about Dr. Mundo historically has always been that you're what's called an aggro magnet. They don't want to focus you. It's a bad idea to focus you, but they're going to have to. They're going to have to. And that inevitably sort of leads Dr. Mundo being one of the more harder to balance champions in the game because you're kind of always a stat check of a champion. You either are good and therefore a little bit too insane to deal with, or you suck and everyone ignores you. Dr. Mundo, I kind of hope they never rework him because in his simple form, he's so trolly and fun. And you guys know I love my trolly champions. But yeah, you've just seen it. Globetrotting this game, just walking around, being a huge troll, just how there's not much to say. You can see what's happening. I am just walking around, farming everything, forcing the enemy team to sort of beat up on me, and then, laugh it off. My health is already back to full, and that's just because I'm walking around with a Warmogs. Here, I took down the dragon, took a bit of health, damage to my health, and then I'm fully back again. It's so fun just to have a Warmog's armor this early, and the enemy team must be so frustrated just with the idea. Here I again just sort of don't care if they're focusing me a little bit. I just run right into them, just throw cleavers, force them to burn mana, burn abilities, whatever have you. Because the second I retreat, in this case my teammate gets killed because of my shenanigans, the second I retreat, give myself a little bit of breathing room. You can just see Warmogs activate and my health just skyrockets basically back up to full. It's hilarious, and it leads to one of Dr. Mundo's greatest strengths as a champion that very few other junglers still have yet to get. Dr. Mundo is one of the very few poke champions who can poke and siege as well as most laners could, or as most mages, honestly. I mean, I don't have any actual. Well, okay, I'm gonna point out the Warmucks here. I'm almost dead. I'm gonna sit back here, breathe. Bam! Look at that. I'm already back to full health and ready to fight. That's just so awful, so awful. But anyway, as I was saying. Dr. Mundo can siege. He can just, if you get hurt, just hang back, heal back to full, just throw cleavers constantly, fight at a range, force the enemy team to engage in a really bad situation. There, I finally do get dropped down because I overly engaged and I didn't have, all my resources available. But it did lead to my teammates being able to just run through 3 of them and a tower. So I guess it's a worthwhile death. But yeah, Dr. Mundo, I love him. Perhaps one of those champions who I know, when I know he's actually strong and my teammates can possibly, take advantage of that, I'll bust him out. I will say that the biggest thanks for Dr. Mundo, at least in my case, seeing play again, is because of Shyvana. Shyvana's been seeing, a weird return in solo queue, at least, and so far from what I experienced. And as a result, players are more used to seeing that kind of play style again, which allows me to sort of play Dr. Mundo, because if they can play alongside a Shyvana, then they can most definitely play against with a Dr. Mundo. And out of the two, Dr. Mundo is the more classically defensive option, though, it's sort of like a mood point between them because they both, are potentially very tanky and can do a lot of damage. It's just more Dr. Mundo being more of a value champion and having a more streamlined build, while Shyvana having a versatile amount of builds but more gold reliant. Anyways, as you can see, I'm just sort of like eating all their damage still under this tower, tanking all of them, and I don't even fucking die. Again, I'm gonna sit back, tickle myself a little bit, and my health is just going getting ridiculous again. And as soon as I'm almost fully healthy, I re-engage again, basically bullying the enemy team into focusing me, burning all their abilities, putting themselves in my way. In the case of Timo, throwing his mushrooms at me instead of being effective with them. And again, I just shrug all this off. It's fun. It's ridiculous. And again, I take the exhaust for situations like this because I don't need flash. If they focus me, if I ever need a flash, it's because I put myself in a ridiculously stupid situation position as someone who can literally take tanks to the face or missiles to the face and laugh about it. It's amazing. Like I said, at this point, the enemy team let me get way too hard, way too fast, so I could just pretty much ignore all their damage and force them to fight in ridiculously disadvantageous situations. So, hooray for Dr. Mundo. You gotta love it. You just gotta love this man. There's not much the enemy team could do. Once I got big, there was pretty much near nothing they could do. And they got a lot of Executioner's Calling, so with even that, they couldn't achieve very much. So, we focus on Nexus, take it down. This spread is amazing. And I won the challenge that I set up for Club Gigi. So many victories today on this game. Hooray! And if you liked this video, remember to give it a like. And if you aren't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. And if you are subscribed, make sure to hit the little bell up there somewhere so you actually get notifications to my videos, because YouTube and stuff.